Series testing. Now, as the teams head home to crunch their numbers and look for more speed, they know that when they come back here in February, it's going to be a very competitive field.
Juniors cars were down here the other day, and they looked awful good. And, Toyota's always going to be real good. I'm sure they'll come back with some real good cars. But I think there's a couple guys that are going to surprise you. I think Kevin Harvick's cars have been real good down here in testing. So I think we got a good car to hopefully qualify up front and race up there, too.
Daytona's been really good to us in the Busch car from a driver and owner standpoint. So it's it's fun to go to victory lane here and get your season started off right. So we've got the shop down to 4 drivers, where I think we had 9 or 10 or 11 something last year. So it's a lot more organized and hopefully headed in the right direction.
It's going to be very tough. There are some very good cars here. The Childers cars are really fast. The Gibbs cars always fast. Now they have the Toyota power, so I'm guessing they're going to be even faster.
A little bit different than on the sprint side of things, where we have to do most of the qualifying runs because we have to get in on time, or outside the top 35. Here we know we're locked in, so we've done some qualifying stuff, but mainly just trying to get the old Aaron's Dream Machine to race good. That's kind of what we're down here trying to win the race, and you're locked in, so you don't concentrate as much on qualifying stuff.
The winter was good for us. We're way ahead on preparation. We got a lot of good cars built, and a lot farther ahead than we were last winter, so look for good things out of us.
A lot of people talk about speed and all that when you come down here, but I've had some pretty good runs down here. I've been fortunate enough to, this place is really a handling racetrack. And, when I come down here, I don't necessarily look at the number. I try to figure out how many laps I can run around here wide open without having to lift. I mean, that's more important to me than anything.
Okay, so a lot of it's about the handling, but it's also about speed, Ray Dunlap. And as we get ready to head into this week, we know guys are looking at 2 different things, speed and handling.
But when they come testing here at John, it's such a different thing than the race. That's my whole point. Whenever you start talking about a 7-car draft, it's nothing like a 25-car draft. So I was surprised to not see more cars together on the racetrack while we were here this week in Daytona.
Now, we know about the top echelon in this NASCAR Nationwide Series. It's very good because they come from the super teams, but what about the rest of the field, Ray?
There's about 11 guys that are going to be running for the championship here this year, and what really surprises me is the fact that there are so many teams that are going to have multiple drivers throughout the course of the year, and I just think it's a little bit odd. I think the owners need to take a new look at this and try to get more guys going after the championship. Whenever we look at the championship this coming year, can anybody beat any of the 4 guys that are coming from the super teams? And my answer right now is I don't think so.
And we will find out for sure pretty soon. Now, folks, just because we are done with NASCAR testing from Daytona doesn't mean we're done with our preseason coverage. We're heading out for the test in the West from Vegas and California. We'll see you out there.
Enough talk. How about the numbers? 5 days of nationwide series testing. Here are the combined times. Eric Darnell in that Ford is number 1 over the 5 days. And notice there are a couple of Cup guys in there in the top 5. Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards going to run a full season. Brad Coleman, a number of guys, a number of new faces. Johnny Sauter in 8th. He's moving down this season from the Sprint Cup Series last year to the Nationwide Series this year. Michael McDowell going to run a little bit of both. Remember, he'll be in a Michael Waltrip car starting in March. His teammate, David Ruderman, a number of new phases. Should be very interesting to see what some of these new guys can do with some of the powerhouse teams.
Preseason Thunder continues this week, 7 Eastern on speed, starting tomorrow with testing from Las Vegas. Preseason testing wraps up Friday. California, catch up on all your NASCAR Sprint Cup Series news from the test out west all week, 7 p.m.
Coming up on the Speed Report. It seems like just yesterday that World Rally crowned a champion in the UK. And this week, they returned in a wintry opening round from Monte Carlo. For the first time this year, the F1 boys are showing each other what they've got in Valencia, Spain. We'll let you know who's hungry and who's out to lunch. And back in the U.S., more testing in Phoenix. We've got some driver reactions on the new rules changes this year in the NHRA. Plus, more coverage from Daytona. And who had a rough week in Malaysia? Don't go anywhere. We're full throttle when the Speed Report returns.
Right where he left off last year in Great Britain, the man cannot be stopped, can he? With a second-place finish, Urbanen goes to Sweden, just 2 markers behind in the point standings, and the Aussie Chris Atkinson rounds out the top 3 from Monte Carlo.
With F1's ever-present testing schedule, we've seen these guys pretty much every week throughout the offseason. So what makes this week any different? Well, it is the first test where all of the teams have actually been together. Ferrari made the big impression day one, but it was not the reigning world champ at the top of the speed charts. Kimi Räikkönen was actually a half-second slower than his teammate, Felipe Massa.
I think we found a lot of improvement already compared to the last year's car, and we still want definitely more. But I think everything is going in the right direction.
Day two marks the first really good look at the new Renault R28, and Fernando Alonso, the former world champ, was sitting sixth on the speed charts until a mechanical failure ended his day. And here's something surprising. Think there's bad blood between Alonso and all of McLaren? Guess not. Meanwhile, Nico Rosberg took an early trip into the gravel, but ended the day as one of the biggest surprises. His Williams Toyota turned laps just a tick off Ferrari's times.
It's always a special feeling to start testing with a new car, because that's what you're waiting for and it's what you're going to be driving all year. But you start carefully also, you know, so we build it up and we try some few things. So it's not, I don't really have the best idea yet how it is, but general impression was positive.
And Wednesday, Rosberg took a back seat while his rookie teammate showed the previous day's performance was no fluke. Kaz Nakajima logged the fifth quickest time in his FW30. But with both McLarens on track, the competition was a bit stiffer. Heikki Kovalainen claimed the top spot, then came the two red cars, followed by Lewis Hamilton in the fourth spot. Thursday, it was a battle of the two Finns. Kovalainen dominated until he was just edged out at the day's end by, no surprise, the world champ, Räikkönen. But what about the other end of the speed chart? A few surprises, actually, including both Nick Heidfeld and Robert Kubica, who struggled with the balance in their new BMW F108s. And on each and every day, Honda brought up the rear.
Well, there's been some rumors that Toyota has been given a 2-year deadline to succeed in Formula One. Toyota has never won a race in the series. Team President John Howett cleared things up last week when he informed everyone that Toyota will compete in the series up through 2012. Coming up, we'll go down to Daytona and get some expert analysis from the speed crew at the Rolex 24.
And if you're confused by the NHRA's new rules, you're not the only one. Plus, some drivers just don't like them. The latest word from Phoenix testing coming up.
You're watching the Speed Report, driven.
Well, the 24 hours might be up at the Rolex 24 at Daytona, but our crew calling the race still has a lot to talk about. First, though, let's show you how Chip Ganassi's guys made some history today. And we start with Scott Pruitt. Started the 24 hours in the middle of the pack after changing tires before the green flag. Driver changed, Dario Franchitti, and he starts to make his move. Problems with the O2 sister car sliding through the grass and having to head to the garage for a new front end. Only bad luck for Pruitt is when Michael Valiente got into him. No damage there. While leading the race, a scary moment here. Yao Barbosa has a ride of his life. Suspension snaps, sends his hood flying, and he goes flying around on the track. Lead position goes to Brian Purcell until his suspension breaks at the bus stop and he has to nurse it to the pits. Now Juan Montoya would be the only car on the lead lap, takes over the lead. One last pit stop and driver change to secure a third straight Rolex 24 championship. Scott Pruitt driving to the checkered flag, and there are the guys at Ganassi, Target Chip Ganassi Racing, celebrating the big win. Lee Diffie, Dorsey Schrader in Daytona.
This year's Rolex 24 at Daytona was a record-setting day for a variety of reasons. Of course, Chip Ganassi with Felix Sabates Racing, they got the three-peat, 3 successive wins overall and in the DP class, and it was a mighty effort. No one's done that in the 46-year history of this event. Other records that were set, 24 caution periods over 95 laps and a massive 60 lead changes across 15 drivers. Dario Franchitti said after the race that he felt his job was to keep that 0-1 car clean, no scratches, don't damage it. Do you think that was one of the contributing factors?
Well, I do. I'll tell you what, because of the weather that they had to go through, normally I would assess one of these things 50-50. 50% of what the team did to get the car going and the strategy they pulled, 50% of the driver. But I give more to the drivers this time because last night with all of the rain coming and going and so forth, it would have been very easily to get off the road, crash the car. We saw so many guys that did it. The 0-1 car kept going, didn't have to give the extra workload to the Ganassi guys. Let them be able to think about the situations, the pit stops, and to win this race.
They led the last 100 laps. In fact, they led about a third of the race, but it was one of those races where there was no clear-cut dominating car right until the very end. Let's switch gears to GT because Mazda, it was a great day for them in their RX-8 and a Florida team, Speed Source Engineering, because they broke Porsche's 9-year consecutive winning streak to grab the GT class. That was fantastic.
The little team that could. I really have my hats off to these guys. They're the real clear winner of this deal. They won by 5 laps, by the way. So they had their car running perfectly all night. They got backed into once they got hurt in the back end. They fixed it, and the rest of the time that little Mazda just chugged on down the road.
The top 2 teams at the end of last year's championship in the Daytona prototype class finished the top 2 in class here. And TRG, they came here with 7 GT cars, and they finished 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So some very good individual efforts here today. Next round of the series, 2 months' time at Miami Homestead Speedway.
Well, we've just begun to whet your appetite for Daytona racing, and the Rolex, of course, got the season started in style. But you know what that means? It means the 100 hours of Sprint Cup coverage has begun. Speed's got you covered from now until the end of the Daytona 500. Coverage from Daytona starts on February 7th.
More and more changes for the NHRA. A few weeks back, it was changes to the Countdown to 1 format. Now it is changes to the qualifying format because, quite frankly, the series is tired of fighting Mother Nature. Here's how it's going to work. The top 12 elapsed times in each pro category will get a provisional status prior to the last day of qualifying. Those that didn't make the field still get a chance on the final day when no one is safe. Not even the provisional top 12. And when the weather is bad, the 4 quickest cars outside the top 12 will complete the 16-car field. Confused? Well, you're not the only one, because drivers, some of them at least, feel the same way. That, and some are just a bit unhappy about it, too.
I think it's ridiculous. Eliminate the night run. We don't race at night. The main goal for me is to make a good show on Sunday for the fans and the spectators. So let's run the qualifying on Friday and Saturday, the same times that we run eliminations on Sunday, and let's make a better show. I think it's kind of silly. I think our sport's a little confusing as it is to have somebody run slower and win, and I think this is going to confuse the fans.
The new qualifying format is a bit confusing still for me. I think for a lot of people. You know, you read the press release NHRA put out, and it sounded great. It said, you know, there's provisional, there's 12 people locked in out of the 16 on Friday night. But then down below it says that they could still get bumped out on Saturday, which it kind of defeated the purpose.
One thing that isn't confusing is the new countdown to the championship. The drivers are excited, and most feel that now they will have a true champion.
I don't think that was everybody's favorite situation, so they've definitely made an improvement. This, you know, gives you a little more time to let things really work it out like it would during the normal season. It's just kind of condensed a little bit more, so I think everybody's happy with that change.
I think it's a smarter move. I think bottom line, no matter how you look at it, last year the people that won the championships would have finished third, and nothing against them because I think they played into what the situation was. But I think that when you talk about our class, I think that when you look at Hot Rod or people like that, there's probably some people that probably should have won it because of how they've ran for the whole season. I think that they got robbed.
I think it's going to be more accurate to determine a champion. We all knew going into last year that, 2 races, it becomes a little bit of a crapshoot. And, it worked for us. We knew that we had to be good when it really counted. And, I think some critics might say, well, there might have been another champion with the old format, but we would have raced different. I really believe that we'd have been more aggressive had we not gone into that last race with that big of a lead. And I like to think the end result would have been the same.
There is no confusing the excitement of racing in NASCAR country. The start of the countdown to 1 will be at a drag strip in Concord, North Carolina, and everyone is thrilled to be racing at another Bruton Smith-owned track.
Bruton Smith definitely has the nicest tracks on the tour, and that's probably going to be the nicest one that we go to, so I can't wait to get there.
I'm excited about it. I know that when we used to run at Rockingham, for the Winston Invitationals and all that stuff, used to get a great turnout, of all the Cup fans and the Cup teams and all that. So it'll be nice to get back down there and try to put a show on for them.
Well, let's piggyback on that story right there. And, of course, Speedway Motorsports CEO Bruton Smith unveiling the plans for his new state-of-the-art drag racing facility in Concord, North Carolina. Smith is calling this thing the Bellagio of the drag strip. Fans can help vote on its name at LowesMotorspeedway.com. The facility will seat 30,000 race fans with the ability to expand to 60,000. The first race will be the first of the chase, September 11th through the 14th.
And some terribly sad news. Another tragedy has hit the NHRA family. Top Fuel racer Doug Herbert's 2 sons were killed this week in a car accident here in North Carolina. John was 17, James was only 12. Our thoughts go out to the entire Herbert family. The Speed Report, we'll be right back.
Good news for Nicky Hayden fans. Last year was last year. His bike will be better, and he should be back in contention for the MotoGP Championship in 2008. Nicky was the fastest MotoGP rider at the Malaysia test, 0.3 faster than reigning champ Casey Stoner's Ducati. And other MotoGP news to pass along your way. Let's talk about Yamaha and Fiat gathering to celebrate their second season together at the 2008 team launch in Spain. The two powerhouses unveiling their new 2008 YZR M1 bike and sporting an updated version of the Fiat Yamaha team's eye-catching white and blue colors. On hand for the celebration were world champion Valentino Rossi, as well as his new 20-year-old teammate Jorge Lorenzo, who is stepping up to MotoGP from his back-to-back championships in the 250 class. The two teammates then tested together in Sepang, where the youngster Lorenzo bested Rossi by posting the fastest time of all the Yamahas. But the day's scariest moment came when Dani Pedrosa lost control of his bike in turn 11. Thankfully, the rider got away from the bike quickly before it exploded and was rushed to the hospital, where x-rays showed a hairline fracture in his right arm. Doctors say recovery for Pedrosa should take about 3 weeks.
Wow. Have we missed anything? Because it actually seems like we've probably missed a lot. This week's Speed Rip is packed with extra bits and pieces.
In NASCAR news, Michael Waltrip officially named Michael McDowell as driver of the 00 Toyota beginning March 30th at Martinsville. It was rumored McDowell would split time with Josh Wise, but that is apparently not the case.
Over at Richard Childress' camp, Stephen Light has picked up at least 2 nationwide races this year in the number 21 Chevy. Light's response, quote, "It is such a privilege to be part of a championship team."
The IndyCar Series Ironman has officially jumped ship. Scott Sharp and his Patron sponsorship have officially signed on in the American Le Mans Series with Highcroft Racing. Sharp will team with David Bradham full-time in 2008.
Over in Champ Car, PKV Racing will use Alex Tagliani for the test at Sebring next week. He'll work with the team's confirmed driver, Oriol Servia, and there is a chance Tagliani could end up in the team's second car full-time.
1950 Indy 500 winner Johnny Parsons headlines a list of National Sprint Car Hall of Fame inductees for 2008. He joins Indy legend Tony Bettenhausen Sr., engine builder and car owner Bob Hampshire, and 12 others.
NASCAR Sprint Cup driver Jamie McMurray was noticeably missing from this week's media tour. The Roush Fenway driver was in court. Just call him juror number 7 from now on. He was simply doing his civic duty.
Coming up, a little action from Atlantic City, the final lap, and the best pictures of the week in the Fast 5.
High drama. Star power. Special effects. Unexpected thrills. And the world's greatest chase scenes. It's the 2008 West Coast premiere of NASCAR and the car of tomorrow at California Speedway. The Auto Club 500 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, Sunday, February 24th. For tickets, call 800-944-RACE or visit RACE.
Quite a few times, Calvin Fish would call him Spinning Salvador. Maybe he was having issues with the flux capacitor, they write.
Number 2 Supercross from San Francisco, and here's the not-so-good track conditions. Take a lot of dirt, add a lot of water, and this is what you get, a lot of mud.
Numero uno. It's hard enough to win one 24-hour endurance race, but trying to win 3 in a row. Chip Ganassi did it, of course. Troubles for their drivers, trouble-free.
The Speed Report is driven by BF Goodrich Tires. Take control.
NASCAR on speed. It's Sprint Cup.
Try to make it better, a little bit faster.
Nationwide and Craftsman Truck Series testing.
We got a lot of unknowns coming at us.
On NASCAR Preseason Thunder. Coverage from Las Vegas continues tomorrow, 7 Eastern, 8 Pacific. Be there.
You don't get to the top of your game by making dumb decisions.
So choose the tire that sets records, wins championships, and controls the competition from start to finish. BF Goodrich Tires. Take control.
Own a timeshare or campground membership? Turn it into cash.
Timeshares Only got us our full asking price before our next monthly payment was due.
Timeshares Only is the nation's largest, #1 most successful timeshare agency, representing properties from the biggest names in the industry.
No one sells more timeshares.
Call now and receive a free information kit, including 10 secrets to timeshares. You owe it to yourself to work with the best. Don't.
What happened when I didn't call Time Warner Cable Business Class? I'm calling about your internet service. We have many high-capacity solutions perfectly suited to WANs, LANs, and VPNs with more TLAs at no extra charge. TLAs? 3-letter acronyms. Can't you just tell me about your internet service without the TLAs? I just wanted internet for my business. That's why I called Time Warner Cable. They came to my office, then tailored a high-speed internet solution that made me more productive, all in a language that I could understand.
Hello, my name is fill in the blank.
Time Warner Cable Business Class.
Find an easier way to shop with Shop NBC. From fashion, jewelry, cosmetics, electronics, and everything for your home, Shop NBC is the place to shop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Shopping made easy from the comfort of your own home. Shop NBC. Be good to yourself.
So log on now to get your success kit. Just 112 days now left to go before the NASCAR Sprint Cup All-Star Race on Speed. See NASCAR's biggest stars go head-to-head. Live in a winner-take-all dash for cash. The NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race only on Speed. NASCAR on Speed, be there.
And only one more bit of business to get to before we go. Kicking off this week's final lap, Ray Dunlap from Daytona.
The biggest expense for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams over the offseason was the changeover to the new 18-gallon fuel cell. In the past, we used a 22-gallon cell, but most of the cars needed retrofitted for the new piece. This component is about $3,500, and realize many of the teams have 12 to 14 cars in their fleet. The worst part is all that money was spent for one season, because come November, these cars will be obsolete.
We saw the debut of the new Riley chassis at this year's Rolex 24. It performed very well. The Lola and the Delara will be out at Homestead. We also understand that Richard Childress and Rick Howard will run a limited schedule for the remainder of the season, as will open wheel star with Jimmy Vasser, with a good friend of his from Open Wheel Racing. He won't say exactly who it is, but what's the matter with seeing a little bit more of Jimmy Vasser this year?
As these guys battled these treacherous conditions, take a look at how bad this track is. The one guy that wasn't here this evening, obviously, is the number 7 of James Stewart, who underwent surgery just this past Thursday on his left knee. Obviously out for the season. We look forward to seeing him at the outdoors. He is missed, but I'm sure at this point, James is not missing these track conditions.
Well, the media tour concluded on Thursday. Let's see, we made 15 stops. We interviewed about 50 different people, drivers, crew chiefs, team owners, and other members of the media, Wendy.
And NASCAR made some announcements, some minor changes for 2008, one of them being qualifying. The go or go home guys will now qualify at the end of their respective qualifying sessions.
On top of that, I think the common theme was, can anybody do anything with Hendrick Motorsports? And that's the way we're going into 2008. Anything else?
Yeah, let's not forget Dale Earnhardt Jr., the busiest stop on the tour. All eyes will be on him at Daytona.
And don't forget, testing will come up in the West. We'll have more on that. Preseason Thunder will continue on Monday.
You know what? The last couple years in the show have been a lot of fun. Thank you, and thank you at home. We appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure to work with you, and thanks for inviting Nicole and I into your living rooms. We say goodbye for the final time as hosts of the Speed Report here on Speed.